Hello, Rio. How are you doing tonight? Good. I'm facing 3 problems. Number 1, it's always horrible to go after an artist with great humor and a local celebrity. 2, I'm very hungry, and I'm separating all of you from dinner. If I would do the talk like this, it would be a very different talk, lots of grumbling. And 3, my first language is Swiss. It's officially the slowest language in the world. And Swiss English, it's quite something. So I'm trying to find my inner Colombian and speed this up. So let's try. Just in case you want to tweet. So my name is Sandra Cortesi. I spend my days understanding 15-year-olds, roughly, 12 to 18-year-olds. So I don't know how many of you in here have a teenager at home or a sibling that is a teenager, and understanding the minds of teenagers is quite something. So they keep me quite busy, but I think it's the best job in the world. And so what I want to do for the next 13 minutes, if I'm Swiss, hopefully, I want to share with you 2 realities, 2 fictions then, and then 4 observations. So bear with me. I promise I will make this as entertaining as possible. So I want to start with 2 actual realities, concrete examples, people that are real and do exist, to get us into the mindset of a young person and how they engage with digital. And then I want to teleport us into the future and see how those realities would look like 20 years from now. So the 2 actual examples are Ananda. She's 16. She used to live in the United States, now lives in Switzerland. And Luis, he's 14, he lives in Colombia. 3 places where I work a lot. And so the first example, I'm going to start with Ananda. And when coming here, I asked her, Ananda, can you do me please a favor? I need to talk to a lot of people that are very smart, and I need to basically build a bridge between what you do with digital technology so they understand your reality better. So I want to, on one slide, make sure I map a day of your life with digital. And so she looked at me with eyes like this and said, Sandra, are you crazy? This is going to be another Ronaldo session with 50 slides. So that's not possible. So can we maybe limit it to 1 hour of my life? And I said, okay, let's try. And so here is what came out. It's her first hour in her day as she wakes up. This is Ananda. So the day starts, she looks at her phone, has 7 Snapchat messages that she's looking at. She has 146 WhatsApp messages, and I'm not making this up. She literally wrote that down. She says that most of the WhatsApp messages are actually from group chats, so that's why there are so many. Then she opens Instagram, where she looks at the latest post she posted overnight. 69 likes. She's only medium happy with it, but thinks it's quite okay. She then looks again at her phone, looks at the bus schedule, quickly looks at the weather, also on her phone. Again, runs out of the house, texts her 6 friends that she is running a little bit late, but she's on her way to the bus station. While she does so, she looks at YouTube and at her favorite YouTubers and see what they posted since last night. She, in parallel, also reads the newspaper, mostly physical, because in Switzerland it's free, but if there is none available at the bus stop, she does it online. She also uses at the exact same time her dad's Spotify account, which she then can use for free. And very importantly, she's very proud of this, looks again at Snapchat, where she has a Snapchat streak of 814, which means 814 days in a row, she and her best friend have texted each other, no gap. Because if you have a bad day, it goes back to 0. So she said to me, that's roughly her 1 hour of her life. And I'm not making this up. So now I said to my team, the youth and media team at the Berkman Klein Center, I said, look, my topic here for today, they gave me the challenge to talk about the future. And I'm a researcher. I tend to not be a fortune teller. But I said, okay, let's take on this challenge. And here's what we said. An hour in Ananda's life, 20 years from now, still the same 16-year-old Ananda, could possibly look like. This is fiction. So some kind of artificial intelligence assistant is going to wake Ananda up. This assistant is going to tell her that what her friends did overnight, and also tell her that 2 of her friends defriended her. This defriending will result in a lower social score, which will also impact actually the family credit score. At the same time as she receives this news, also her virtual assistant is going to tell her about breakfast, the options, and is going to then, based on Ananda's choices, going to send those breakfast choices to the kitchen, so food will be prepared for her as she takes a shower. Luckily also, her artificial virtual assistant has prepared for her the clothes based on the weather, Ananda's preferences, and what she hasn't worn in a while. As she goes to the kitchen, her virtual assistant reminds her that she didn't do homework, and the punishment by her parents, actually, for not doing homework is 2 hours no connectivity. She also learns that this no homework doing was sent to school, and that it's lowering her learning score. She panics a little bit, but says, okay, I will do just fine. Calls her friends. We will see how that looks like 20 years from now. But they, with each other, agree on whose artificial intelligence vehicle, so autonomous vehicle, is going to come and pick them up. They decide it's going to be Ananda's one. And her explanation is that last night she ordered a book on Amazon, and the book was going to be in the car the morning of. She opens the book actually as she gets into the car, and on the first page of the book that she just ordered the night before, it's telling her why this book is relevant for her course. As she sits in the car, she picks up her friends, they talk about last night's news, and at some point a voice interrupts them in the vehicle and says, this is just fake news what you discussed. It's not real. Okay, so this is Ananda 20 years from now. Now I want to talk about a second example, again a real example, because it's a slightly different one. It's a story about Luis. Again, he exists. He lives in Colombia, and he is 14. This is the reality of him. He lives in a household with his older brother and his parents. They have roughly access to technology. When I asked him again that I'm going to do this, it happens quite often that I warn them about things like that. So can you help me map a day in your life? He said, well, I can, but just please warn the people I'm not a morning person. So my morning activities are quite limited. I'm more of a Friday evening kind of person. Evenings overall are more preferred for me. So I said, no worries, I will translate that to the people in the room. So he says, okay, my mornings, they are mostly focused on social media. Not too much, but what I try to do on social media is I'm super passionate about photography. And so I spend most of my time either looking at photographs or looking at products related to photography. So he has a DSLR camera, and he looks at tutorials on YouTube and different photos on iStock. In the evenings, when he has a little bit more time, by the way, during the day, he's not allowed to bring his phone to school, and there is no good connectivity at school. But during the evenings, he does do some gaming. And then again, he spends more time looking at things related to photography, maybe posts a few, and also spends, interestingly enough, some time on eBay looking at photo equipment. Again, this is a reality. And so again, same exercise. We asked the people in my office, what would his reality look like in 20 years from now? And here's what we came up. Again, fiction. He would still be woken up probably by his phone. On his phone, he might actually be able to look at some suggestions, we heard it before from Mimi, that were produced maybe by an artificial intelligence-based technology, productions of photographies he made, or suggestions of other photographies made by others, purely technology-made. On his way to school, he will probably pass a lot of sensors and cameras. We heard it before about predictive policing. And actually, one of those cameras could potentially also have picked up that he was late for school and sent a message to his parents. He spends a lot of time on the way to school to think about his future job, because one of his dads, according to Ronaldo, a pilot, just lost his job because of artificial intelligence. So he wants to basically not fall into the same trap and thinks about ways of improve his education or improve his pathways. And so when he can and when he's empowered to, he tries in his free time to use things like virtual assistants or online tutors and mentors to improve some of the areas where the school does not support him. And luckily for him, he has a great NGO in Bogota that helps him and supports him with his passion of gaming and brings themes around artificial intelligence and gaming closer to him, and that enables him to develop and some of his passions more. So I know I'm halfway through, and so with this, I want to share 4 observations and connect those to the 2 realities and 2 fictional stories. Bear with me. The first topic that really keeps me busy during the day, but also at night, and I'm struggling with, I'm an optimist. Inside of me, I'm usually an optimist, but this topic really keeps me busy, and I'm ambivalent as how I feel about it. So what I tried to do before coming here is just look at some of the headlines when it comes to young people and identity. And here are two observations or 2 questions that I'm asking myself. We heard it from Mimi, artificial intelligence-based technologies, they can enhance creativity, or they can be powerful tools to nudge you or help you be more creative, as you see at the very top. But at the same time, I ask myself, what does this mean for a person like Ananda or Luis? Will it just create more of the same, or will it really empower them to be more creative? And the second thing that really keeps me busy thinking about identity is thinking about the future of jobs, and not just the jobs itself, so what kind of jobs will young people choose, but how will they feel about the future and and pathways moving into the future. Will they be optimistic about it, or will they go with it so concerned that it will really shape their own identities? The second area that really keeps me busy, we have done a lot of work not related to artificial intelligence, more to social media and privacy, is privacy. And so what comes out of this work, again, not artificial intelligence related, is that young people do care about privacy. So if someone leaves this room and still thinks that young people do not care about privacy, I said it very clear. Young people very much care about privacy. And they spend a significant amount of time curating their reputation and thinking about their privacy. 2 things, again, that keep me thinking. One is young people are often at the forefront of using some of these technologies, AI or not. And so I ask myself, what will this mean? Will they, for instance, have the choice to opt out? Is that an option? Or if they opt out, what will this do to the data sets? We heard it before, it then might create biased data sets. So how do we guard young people's privacy better? And 2, we also heard it before, thinking, for instance, about image interpretation and recognition. Many things that young people do online are heavily contextual and for a non-young person really difficult to understand. And so if it's not just about picture recognition, but picture interpretation in the context of young people, that really, I'm puzzled. And so that's where my optimism is not so high today. Okay, and so the third area that keeps me busy, I know I have 1 minute left, Swissy me wants to really make this happen. The third area in me, the third area is learning. Here again, some headlines. And so 2 questions again that I'm thinking about together with my team is not only, it's clear from the headlines that artificial intelligence will impact education and learning, but I wonder, are we actually equipped to implement these technologies? And not just young people, but are educators equipped to implement and use these technologies? And then there are questions around, like, how do we bring personalized and interest-driven learning to scale while addressing the diversity of passions and pathways? So in one way, we want to scale it, and on the other hand, we do care about the individuals and their preferences and their pathways. So that's, to me, a difficult balance act. And the third area where I feel quite optimistic about, so to end on a more positive note, I think is this area of well-being. And if you spent the day with us, there were quite a few interesting remarks made about this. I do think it has, for instance, potential to facilitate diagnosis, deliver targeted treatment, increase, for instance, social awareness about complex health issues. It can be used, for instance, to assess suicide risks, or it can deliver mental health therapy for many young people and adults in need. Two questions again. I feel like well-being itself is a very cultural question or term in itself. What does it mean to be well? I think we can have certain parts where we agree with, and others are, to me, very culturally shaped. And related to it, so how can we account for cultural differences in how we express mental and emotional distress? And particularly in the context of young people, again, who is going to help us with this translational effort if it's mostly going to be machines? Two last slides, I promise. Here I usually show my colleague Renee Silva as a sign for empowerment. So how do we make sure that we actually arrive in a more so we heard at the very beginning, we are at this crossroad. We have two paths to choose from. So how do we make sure we take the right one? So not just from an individual, but maybe also from a group perspective, we arrive where we actually want to be at a much more positive or better future. And so two things that are really important to me. One is we have to start empowering young people. And what I mean by that is we also have to start including them in the conversations around AI. Not just thinking of them as users of potentially AI-based technologies, but also of developers of such. And two, I think an empowerment strategy would also mean that we clearly need to think about a strategy related to skills. So what are the right skills that we need to give to young people and equip them with to navigate this digital space better? And so last slide actually borrowed or stolen today from my colleagues John Palfrey and Urs Gasser and their book Born Digital. Basically the message to all of us, if we want to arrive at a better and more positive future, I do think we have to start working together. And we have to put young people at the center of this and then build concentric circles around it. So we have to include the friends and the families, the teachers, coaches, mentors. We have to involve the tech companies in this conversation, and we have to include law and policy makers. Thank you.